Hello, I'm David Yellin, and this program is Face to Face. We call this session Communism, Democracy, and Economics. And here's why. Our first guest,
Béla Csikós-Nagy. I used to be the chairman of the Board of Prices and Materials in Hungary in the period 1957 to 1984. Since then, I am the executive chairman of the Hungarian Council of Industrial Policy.
Very good.
I'm Kurt Flexner. I'm professor of economics at Memphis State University, and I am also the executive director of the Economic Club of Memphis.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to talk certainly about economics. You two economists are going to dazzle me. Dr. Csikós-Nagy, and we may call you Chicos from now on, right? Okay?
Okay.
What is the purpose of your visit to Memphis in the Mid-South?
My dear colleague, Professor Flexner, invited me for today. I will have a lecture, or as you like, address or speech, about the Hungarian economic reform movements. And that is my
And you're here,
here.
And are you just visiting Memphis, or are you going to visit other places in the United States?
Yes, other places too, in Washington, in the World Bank, that's all. And
Have you been to the United States before?
Oh, 5 times.
5 times.
Yes.
So you're well acquainted.
I think so.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you the final test. Do you know that we have a good basketball team in this city?
Yes, I know. Yesterday
right.
I've heard about it.
Okay, we want to know that you're an honorary citizen, if you know that. Okay. Kurt, what is he going to talk about the Economic Club?
He's going to talk before the Economic Club of Memphis this noon, as he said, on the Hungarian economic reform movement since '57, in which he played a major role, and that's
all right. Now, as we understand it, would I be correct that the Hungarian economy is communist-oriented as opposed to our own system? Would I be right or wrong?
I'm not sure, because this is a socialist-oriented economy.
All right, socialist-oriented
Economy with socialist production relations, but with a somewhat different control system, which actually the situation or the model in Soviet Union is.
It's not the same as in the Soviet Union.
We started in early 50s to adopt the Soviet type of socialist planning, but then after 1956 we changed this.
All right. Could you, or you, Dr. Flexner, so that we are real clear, what is the difference between socialist planning and our own kind of...
Well, I'll just make a couple of comments, and then he can go on from there.
Yes.
One of the comments I wanted to make is that every economy in the world today is partly a market economy and partly a non-market economy. Like in the United States, local, state, federal government programs, military programs,
and you call that
on
the
debt.
non-market.
That's the non-market sector.
Right.
In the United States, that is 45% of the economy. It's gone up since the last few years, about 5%.
Yeah.
And in Hungary, it is also 45%.
Yes.
So,
Okay, but what I'd like to be, so that we're all clear, because people talk about communism, socialism, and they haven't the slightest idea what they mean.
well, there is no communism anywhere in the world.
Right.
And it never existed. I think Dr. Nagy agrees with me. I call the Russian system authoritarian state capitalism. It's not a communist
and
society.
all profits go to the state?
Well, they don't call it profits. They call it surplus.
All right.
And the surplus, let him explain some of that.
Well, all right.
Well, I would say that just after the social revolution in the Soviet Union, they tried to establish a communist system. It is called war communism.
Yes.
But after a few months, it turned out it cannot work, cannot operate. And then they have changed and re-established the economic categories of the market economy, of course, in a planned system. And so they have introduced a so-called directive planning system. And if we will make a comparison with the capitalist system, let us say The nearest to this is French system, the so-called indicative planning system.
All right. Can you, in simple terms, and maybe it's impossible, but it's very important for us to understand what we're going to talk about here, the capitalist system and the socialist system, wherein lies the difference?
I think one difference is that the scope of social benefits are wider.
In the socialist
in a socialist system, wider. This is
and it's controlled by the government.
Yes. This is the so-called distribution according to political preferences.
Yes.
This is one point, I think. The main difference is in the price function. I think so, in the price mechanism.
Now, in socialists, they regulate the price also. The market does not?
I wouldn't say so.
No.
The big change in Hungary was just to bring in the system the price mechanism as it works in a market system. But in the so-called classic model of socialist planning, the price has mostly an accounting role. It has not an allocation role. Allocation is...
Are you talking about supply and demand?
Allocation of resources, first of all, development policy, the capital allocation, and I'm speaking partly, I wouldn't say that supply and demand of consumption goods, because there we have a free market, even in the Soviet Union.
Even in the Soviet Union?
In the Soviet Union.
Yeah. I mean, it's rather obvious. If you don't have enough meat, it's going to cost more.
Yes, this is in the field of consumption goods, they have the market.
Yeah. Now, Kurt, how could we, so that people who have not gone to economics classes, and when they did, they didn't pay attention, make it clear that there are two different systems, or indeed are there? Economic systems.
Well, they are, but not as different as they're made out to be through political propaganda.
System is different.
Well, the Russians would emphasize their communist system, we would emphasize our capitalist system, but a lot of these things are slogans rather than real differences. And I'll point some out. As I said, in Hungary, 45% of the economy is non-market. That means it's politically planned. In the United States, 45% is politically planned. State, local, federal government expenditures are 45% of our... In the Soviet Union, I would say maybe 65% are politically planned. 35% is the market economy, as he said just now, the consumer market. So that it's a matter of degree. Now, in as he said, Lenin wanted... Well, even Lenin, right after Lenin, communism was abandoned in Russia. The NEP, the New Economic Policy in 1925, really, they agreed that you cannot have the concepts of communism which Marxist Leninism
So the various five-year plans and so on.
Well, they're plans. We have plans too. But I mean, we still call the Soviet system communist. The Soviet system is not communist. The Hungarian system is not communist. The Hungarian system is a mixed economy of a mixed market socialist economy. Ours is a mixed market,
capitalistic,
privately planned economy. We have a lot of private planning.
Now, in the marketing section, and that means your grain and your steel and fruit and whatever else you raise and trade and need, you then, in a sense, have a capitalistic system, if that's not a dirty word in your country.
The question is, what is the scope of the market mechanism? Now, what we are just doing in Hungary, this is the first stage of economic reform. Now we will extend the scope of the market. We are speaking today about the labor market, about the capital market, which was not very usual to speak about such things.
You mean that a person can work where he or she wants to in your country?
Yes, of course.
As opposed to before they could not?
And not only this, but we accept that the labor force is a commodity.
So and also a person can start a business in your country.
Yes, of course.
And make a profit and keep it. So that there are now various classes in your country, as opposed to what we think.
Yes, there are, such organization units has been established in the early 80s in Hungary, and Hungary was asked many times since that why we have done these steps, and our answer was that we have investigated the situation in the end of the 70s, and it turned out that the so-called illegal sector of the economy, the so-called second economy, is very strong in the country, and we have investigated this illegal sector of the economy, and it turned out that the activity of this illegal sector is something which is necessary for the population, and so we have put in the legal framework of the economy. This,
yeah. So, we saw recently, and I think was on another network here, 60 Minutes, about the economy in Hungary, and people are thriving. People are making money. There is a wealthy class coming in.
Yes,
is this
there's a problem. The differentiation of the incomes is larger now than before, and we have to investigate what social tensions will come to the fore based on this. But actually, everybody is going out of the problem. These are very necessary activities.
Are people then getting poorer while some are getting richer?
You know, poorer, richer, I would say. Richer, yes, but because the social benefit system ensures the living standards for everybody, you know. So this is, what it means poor is not the same in the term of Hungary, but a deviation from the average on the up.
Yes.
It's larger now than it was 5 years ago.
I see. So the poor aren't getting any poorer in that sense. What about your unemployment? Do you have much unemployment?
No, we are speaking about unemployment in a hidden form. That is to say, people are engaged in the factory, but not everybody of them works. So,
well, that's universal.
in this way, we are speaking about unemployment.
Oh, you know, but do you have unemployment?
No.
You don't?
No.
Do you have social benefits if people can't work?
No. I mean, if in old age and youth, not in this form as you have in the investment.
And you don't have welfare?
No, we have not.
And workmen's insurance?
Because they have the job.
The job is there, so they have no
job is
everybody has a job who can work.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
And people, the one thing I think that can be pointed out is that that there is no system in the modern world that isn't based at least partly on a market economy. The average American believes that a socialist economy is no freedom, no market. That is nonsense. It's all a matter of degree. And in the United States...
Yeah, well, sometimes degree makes
but in the United States, the degree of the non-market economy, the socially planned economy, state, local, federal, is exactly the same percentage as in Hungary, which is a socialist nation.
Of course, we look at it a little differently. We say that's the responsibility of government to have defense,
well, that's what they're saying. They're saying the same thing.
Right.
They're saying that the government is responsible for a basic welfare of the people, the basic welfare.
But, all right, we stop here and say the basic welfare does not mean we run the railroads, does not mean we run the
No, it may or it may not. In some countries it does.
Difference comes
See, every country is different, and what exists in Hungary may not work at all for the United States. We have to make our own decisions.
All right.
I would say in the so-called market segment of the economy, this so-called 55%.
Yeah.
If I would characterize what happened after the reform, with the reform, is the freedom of enterprises has been established. The freedom of enterprise, of course, because before that, in the classic model of socialist planning, you have a breakdown of the obligatory plan targets. Everybody have to fulfill the central determined plan targets.
Yes.
And after the reform, we are going up to the point that there's a freedom of enterprises, risk-taking of the managers, and so on.
Yeah.
So the incentives is a very important new element in this system, you know.
And that's something that we in America understand and live by, in a sense.
Yes.
The incentive to make a profit.
It has to be there.
And it is our impression that, of course, Russia is the base, that in Russia there is less incentive for the people.
Less price function and less incentives.
Yes.
And if you will compare the Hungarian situation, that is more incentives and more
than Russia.
And the price function is more decisive in economy.
Yeah, but you are still politically allied to Russia.
Of course, we are a member country of the Comecon.
Yeah.
Comic-Con, this is economic integration.
Right.
But I have told you that Hungary has a very foreign trade sensitive economy, and 50% of the foreign trade is is Comic-Con, and 50% with the world market.
I was going to ask you that. The 50% of the world market, how much is the trade with America, United States, increasing? And why or why not?
You know, historically, there were not any serious connection between the two countries in the trade relations. Recently, it started.
And recently, what do you mean? 2 years ago? 3 years?
The last decade. The last
beginning
decade.
of the
Yes.
80s.
And what we have in mind, you know, is we would like to have working capital from the United States in Hungary. We would like to have working capital for the United States, from Japan, and from some of the Western European countries.
Now, why do you need working capital, he asks?
Because working capital is for us much more valuable than the pure bank credit. Because working capital means joint ventures. You
would like American business to invest in Hungary?
Yes, that's what. Yeah.
That's an open invitation, all you businessmen. Yeah.
It is.
Yes.
It is certainly. Yes.
And there's not much now.
No, nothing. We have the foreign capitals in this form in Hungary today is not more than $10 million, nothing.
Yeah. But is this a good time for American capital to invest?
Well,
first of all, the dollar is so high. Secondly, we have a deficit, and we're a debtor nation now.
Not only that, but the interest rates are so high that...
interest rates here?
So high here that the Hungarians would have to pay such very high interest rates.
For the credits.
For the credits.
Yes.
So they could not.
No, they can't do it. They would be foolish to borrow money at that very high rate.
But yet you say you want it.
Working capital is not the same.
Well, what's
it's
the
joint
difference?
Venture.
You mean you want the dollar I have in my pocket instead of the promise?
This means that, let us say, firms from the United States with Hungarian firms will join and
joint ventures.
Put
I see.
ventures.
So,
put capital in the business.
So that the big companies will start a factory in Hungary or an office there.
That's really our intention.
That would be feasible, but to lend them money would not be feasible right now because of the huge interest.
All right. Now, this is then a new thing of which you are involved in as chairman of the board of Council of Industrial Policy.
Yes, that is because we are just looking for what kind of changes we have to put in our system to make more attractive the
All right.
Hungarian.
What kind of businesses would American investors invest in Hungary? What kind of businesses are you involved in?
Machine industry, first of all.
Machine?
Machine industry, and in certain part of the chemical industry. These two sectors, chemical and machine industry.
Is this machinery to make machinery or?
To make, of course.
Manufacture machines?
In the light machine industry.
Oh, light machines.
Light machines, yes.
Such as, I mean, you don't mean tractors and...
No, but partly, we have a cooperation in this field, you know, in tractors and lorries and
like
so
an international harvester.
This was the first big business with the United States. But what I have in mind is a light computer and the modern technique.
The new technology.
Yes.
And that's making a great effect in your country, isn't it?
Yes.
Technology.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to ask you something, and maybe so that we understand. You know, a lot of people have the wrong notion, I'm sure, of what is going on in Hungary, of what is the kind of country that you have. You have been in the United States here. Could you explain to the average American, if there is such, how your people in Hungary are content to live under a government that supposedly is more or rather than less totalitarian? First of all, is that a fair assumption, or is that a wrong assumption?
I think the assumption is in this form not absolutely correct.
It's not absolutely incorrect, though.
As you like.
Okay.
I
know it's a hard question, but...
it's a hard question, you know,
yes.
But I must tell you, if, let us say, the Hungarian cooperative, members of the agricultural cooperatives had to give now you an answer. Which situation they will prefer, what they have today, or what it was before the war period, a great majority will tell that's better for us.
It's better.
Because the living standard is much higher in the agriculture than it was before.
Yeah, but perhaps what I'm getting at, and I don't mean to be either presumptuous or arrogant about it, and Kurt, maybe you can help on this. We think of ourselves of having a great amount of freedom of choice. Does the same thing exist in your country?
No, of course not.
Well,
all right, how can you live with that? That's what I'm...
When you say freedom of choice, could you explain that?
Well,
please?
freedom to move around, to...
They have that freedom.
Well, that we have. I saw you have this election and such things you have in mind. I saw. No, this is
what freedom of choice specifically do you mean?
To get a job.
They have that freedom.
That we have.
Yeah.
That we have.
That you have.
A free press, to complain against the government without fear of being punished.
I think there is, since 1957, is a rather wide range of liberty in this respect, you know. Of course, there is a one-party system.
Yes, and that's the other thing, a choice
Yes.
for
This is
election.
the only point where you can say that this is the choice of people is very limited in this.
Is there an there's no opposition party that has any strength at all.
But you can have opposition in the free of the party too.
Yeah, within the party.
Yes, and this from time
a difference
to
of
time
opinion, but the perimeters are pretty much set.
Of course.
It
right?
should be explained, though.
Yeah.
For the United States, our system developed very differently. And,
Yeah, well, all right, I don't want to get... Yeah.
But the point that he made, I would like to explain. If you could compare it and say that in the United States we have a capitalist party in two factions, the Republicans and the Democrats. Well, they think of it that way. They have a communist party, or whatever the party is.
I don't want to get into the politics.
Well, I mean, but that's important.
Yeah, but I want to get into
understanding.
economics, and I think I have part of an
But
answer.
you said free choice.
In this very city, 15 years ago, there was a man called Fred Smith who would be a nothing. Today, he's a multimillionaire with a big company that's very important. Holiday Inns, 25 years ago. All these other people have started, and 5 years ago, they were working in a factory. Today, they're president of a big company. Can this happen in your country?
It can happen, of course, that somebody who is a worker tomorrow is a very efficient man and can be a director of a company, but not this kind of career.
Now, this is what I think is part of what, and I'm not saying, and I'm not making an ethical or moral judgment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm being, in a sense, could you in any way explain to people here, we like our system, and we know we don't have these kinds of freedom, but it doesn't bother us as much as it seems to bother you.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I would agree. Philosophically, from my point of view, we have more freedom here.
Yes.
Of course.
Obviously.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to explain is from their point of view.
That's what I'm saying. How
it is different.
We're trying to understand their point of view, at least I am.
Yes.
Because, here come and they vote, and I guess you are overshadowed, and you must understand this. When we say Hungary, it's an Iron Curtain country, therefore immediately in our head is Russia.
Yes.
So you then become the shadow of Russia, and whatever happens there seems to be happening in your country. But you have said, I think, economically certainly, and politically, it's less...
independent policy in this.
Yeah, there's less stringency in Hungary than...
Because the Comecon integration is not the same as in Western Europe, the common market integration. The common market integration is more centralized. A lot of decisions can be made only by the joint authorities.
Yeah, but it's only economics, whereas the Comintern is also political.
I speak about economics.
Yes.
And in the field of the Comecon, you have the independent decisions for the member countries.
Okay, all right. Can we, unless you, I'm not completely satisfied that I have an answer, but I don't know that there is an answer, because we both are brought up from different stalks, as it were.
Yes.
And for you, you don't seem to be miserable.
There is a lot of I'd like to make this point, having taught so many years. There's a lot of misunderstanding on our part about what goes on over there, and there's a lot of misunderstanding on their part what goes over here. We do not have the kind of exploitative capitalism that Marx wrote about, which did exist in his day.
That makes capitalism
is very ugly. And it has changed tremendously. Well, they do not have the kind of system that existed under Stalin. It's changed tremendously. But we still sort of refer to it in that sense. There is the big problem between the two sides is we know too little about each other. We really do.
Yes.
We are very different.
Well, I also think we know too little about ourselves.
We're very different, and it's probably that we may prefer the way we are, and they may prefer the way they are. I don't know. But we still need to know much more about each other.
But that does not deter us from doing business, does it?
No, it isn't.
No. I mean, that is very interesting, you know. I mean, admittedly, we have people in this city who sell to Russia, China, and so on, who 15, 20 years ago would say, never, get rid of them.
I worked in the State Department from 1966 to 1968. There were 4 countries that, I had a diplomatic passport, there were 4 countries that we could not visit. One of them was China.
Yes.
Okay, and the other was Cuba, the other was Cambodia, and the other was Albania. Those 4 countries were on the off list. Within a very short period of time, China, which has communism, whatever you call it.
You cannot not go to China now, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's completely changed. So I think these are things that are very political, and people don't know enough about each other.
Okay, we have Dr. Csikós-Nagy here in a minute or two, and these are not economic questions. Do you think the arms talks will be successful?
Pardon?
The arms talks.
I hope so. There's our only chance for the future. That a peaceful coexistence can exist in the world. I think so.
Who has to do what?
Both. I think both, in both sides. I have to more understanding each other. This is the same as in economics, you know. So I think we haven't any other alternatives for the future. This is the only.
How much of our economic situation, the dollar, our deficit, affects your country at this point? I think you alluded to it.
I think today is a situation a little bit better than it was 2 years ago.
Why is that?
I don't know, but now the international monetary market is liquid. It's much easier to get credit. It was not the case 2 years ago. And it was told at that time everything is coming to the United States, and so it is very, very difficult for deficit countries to get support on this channel, you know. Today this situation is better. Anyhow, for us, this very high evaluation of the dollar in comparison with the Western European, let us say the DM, the West Germany mark, and so on. This
has been another edition of Face to Face. Audio tape copies of the Face to Face programs are available at the main library, Peabody at McLean.
And so, because their currency is under-evaluated as a present, it makes.
So you're hopeful that American business, as you said before, can invest in Hungary?
Yes.
I would like to ask him a question. In my opinion, we are committed, politically it's